The Sims 4. An open-ended life sim that lets you be anyone and do anything. Here, you can live out your dreams of owning a huge mansion, finding love, and paying a ludicrous amount of money on expansion packs and DLC. Getting started, you're met with the Create a Sim menu, in which you can create whomever you want. Hitting randomize a few times, I came across this absolute lad. Just look at him. That mustache, those shades, that heart-stopping swagger in his stride. He's perfect. Of course, we don't just care about his looks, we care about his personality. He's a materialistic kleptomaniac whose main goal in life is to make as much money as possible. Oh, and he also likes dancing. Let's call him Steve. Yeah. Next, we'll pick a place to live, and since Steve doesn't have a ton of money yet, we'll go with this small starter house. And at last, we can get started. It's a bit of a humble origin for a man like Steve, with small rooms, tiny TV, really nothing to write home about, but that's why it's time to make some money. Given his aspirations, Steve would like to make a lot of money and fast. In The Sims, you can of course get a job, working towards promotions and making money that way, but in my experience, painting is where the real money is. So, Steve will go ahead and buy a basic easel and get started. His next door neighbor, Johnny Zest, comes over and greets his new neighbor. After chatting for a bit, he finishes his first painting, which is alright, I guess. It doesn't really sell for much right now, but eventually his art skills will improve greatly, and he'll make a lot more with each painting. He then finishes his second painting, which is just perfect. It's so perfect, in fact, that he makes the same drawing several more times, though he starts to improve over time. Eventually, his paintings start reaching excellent quality, meaning he can finally start making a serious profit. While working alone will net him some decent cash, Steve knows he must industrialize. Following a plan that I blatantly stole from this one Reddit comment I found, Steve founds a social club all about painting, the Paint Saints. With this configuration, the members should prioritize painting above all else during the club meetings, and because it's at my lot, I should be able to just sell the paintings that they make at no cost. After hiring a few unpaid volunteers, Steve wastes no time outfitting his living room for his operations, and he starts a club meeting. Almost immediately, our painters get to work. Since painting is our one accepted activity here, the club receives these club points every time someone starts painting, which we can then use to buy perks for our club, but that'll come later. Their paintings aren't amazing right off the bat, but they will improve over time. Now, since we're a club and not at all an unpaid labor force working solely for my own profit, we need a uniform. Something to unify us and to bond over. We have a lot of options. Maybe a suit and a tie, a costume, or maybe something more casual. There! It's perfect! Between meetings, Steve has the insatiable urge to steal something, so of course he'll pay a little visit to his neighbor and coworker Johnny Zest. Sneaking his way to the front door, Steve stealthily opens, "I got a tip that it's aliens night at the bar tonight. Want to check it out?" Sneaking in, Steve snags Johnny's bedside lamp, which gives him a rush, and apparently he likes fitness now. Alright. He comes back home to take a disco nap, before taking a moment to admire his new lamp. Excellent. With all the club points we've accumulated, we can buy the Painting Boost perk, which essentially makes leveling the painting skill much faster. Not long after, Steve makes his first masterpiece, which is the highest tier of painting you can make. I also bought 2 capacity upgrades, meaning our club should be able to support 8 members, meaning our profits will only get better and better. In the middle of the night, a vampire appeared. He stalked his way around the back of Steve's house before breaking in. Silently, the vampire approached his bed, a thirst for blood in his eyes. Finally, he prepared to attack. When he got shooed out of the house like a little bit, the money really started coming in, with Steve finally reaching some of his first aspirational goals. The club was also going strong, with everyone's painting skills improving, meaning even better profits as time went on. Steve would even reach the highest level of painting, level 10, which is quite the accomplishment considering he's only been here for about a week. The time would once again come that Steve felt the urge to steal something, but this time he set his sights a little higher. The Landgrab's estate. The Landgrabs are the most well-off family in The Sims 4, so they ought to have something worthwhile. He made his way— "Hey Steve, I think I have a crush on Mila Munch. Do you think it's worth a try?" He made his way inside and looked for something to steal, but I guess he's not skilled enough to steal anything with any actual real value, so he just stole another lamp and called it a day. By now the club was pulling in upwards of 4,800 simoleons on some of their paintings, so Steve was finally on his way towards great fortune. With all the money he'd acquired, Steve could finally ditch the crappy furniture he'd been putting up with for all this time, in favor of something much more fitting of his expensive tastes. Hey, Steve! We'd love to have you join the Garden Gnomes. What do you think? Wait, the Garden Gnomes? Who do these blasphemous plagiarists think they are? Garden Gnomes are our thing! No, this won't do. We can't have 2 Garden Gnome clubs in this town, one of them has to go, and I'm not going anywhere. You know what? Actually, yes, I'd love to join your club. Sign me up. It's run by some lady named Moira, and her members are a kid named Lucas and Bjorn? Wait, Bjorn? That traitor's one of our paint saints! I guess our fair and balanced organization wasn't good enough for you, was it, Bjorn? Well, we'll just have to teach you a lesson then, won't we? I went ahead and built a pool, and if you've ever played The Sims before, you likely know where this is going. Steve invited Moira over to chat. The two just joked around and even shared their love of dance, their moves, quite hypnotic. Eventually, he invited her outside to the pool. It was a hot summer day after all, so what better way to cool off than to go for a nice swim? Steve jumped in first and swam a few laps just to show how much fun he was having. She of course followed suit, and then, like a fly into a pitcher, she walked right into my trap. Steve materialized 4 walls and a ceiling over the water chamber, sealing her inside. Her fate inescapable. Moira would be left to swim for as long as she could while Steve went back inside to... Oh, Steve just got abducted by aliens. And now there's a werewolf rampaging in the streets. What is happening? By the time Steve returned, the deed was done, and the leader of the rival Garden Gnome gang was defeated. That should teach Bjorn a lesson in apostasy. Getting back on track, Steve used some of his aspiration points he received to buy 2 perks. One would make him more likely to create masterpieces, and the other would make all of his creations more profitable. Now we're reaching the end game of profitability. After one of our meetings, Bjorn stayed a little late to finish one of his paintings, a clear sign of remorse for his traitorous ways. So we'll say he learned his lesson. Profit soaring, Steve finally achieved his aspirations of wealth, earning over 200,000 simoleons. And that right there is the spitting image of a made man. With his acquired wealth, he decided to return to Landgrab's manor, buying them out and evicting them from their own home. Steve decided to sell all their furniture as well, since he didn't see a need for their old worn-down junk, and he could just fill the home with all the things that mattered to him most. And so, Steve danced in celebration of all he had accomplished, knowing he could have it all and become the richest man in the world.